I'm joined by Brivati, a historian specialising in the political history of the Labour Party, Alena Ivanova, a member of Momentum and a campaign organiser for Another Europe is Possible. She wants a second referendum. And by Labour MPs Chris Williamson and also by Gareth Snell. And we must say that for the second night in a row, we did ask for a member of the Labour shadow team to join us, but nobody was available. First of all, Chris Williamson joining us from Stoke. That line that Nick Watt was talking about, that basically Jeremy Corbyn needs to break with the Stalinist Eurosceptics, is that the right analysis? Do you agree with that?
Well, I'm joining you from Derby, Kirsty, not Stoke. It's Gareth that's from Stoke. Well, first of all, let me just pick Nick up on his interpretation of that poll. He slightly misrepresented it, I've got to say, because 84% of Labour Party members in that same poll actually support a general election. And let's remember also that the motion that was passed at the Labour Party conference unanimously, I believe, actually called for the party to reject any deal that didn't meet our 6 tests and then to seek a general election. And any talk about a possible vote was very much last in the order of priorities. And the people's vote that we need, the only way, in my opinion, really to get through this impasse is to have a general election.
Yes, but that is somewhere, it's the direction of travel. And basically, what Nick was saying, it was that actually it's a lack of clarity or actual understanding of where Jeremy Corbyn stands on Europe that is the heart of Labour's problem about defining their strategy.
I honestly don't understand how anybody can say there's a lack of clarity. Jeremy has been abundantly clear that he is abiding by the conference resolution.
Hang on. What I'm saying is he knows he's not going to get a general election. Barry Gardner yesterday, the Shadow International Trade Secretary, said that there should be an immediate vote of no confidence if that deal falls next week. Jeremy Corbyn didn't say that today. In fact, he equivocated over when a vote of confidence should take place if the deal fell. It's not clear. Let me just bring in a Momentum supporter and also originally a Jeremy Corbyn supporter. In that film as well, it talked about the fact that Jeremy Corbyn has always made great play of listening to the members, listening to the grassroots, taking them as seriously, if not more seriously, than parliamentarians.
Sure.
Do you feel that's happening? Do you feel that you're getting that voice?
I think that was the biggest attraction when it comes to Jeremy's bid for leader. I think that's the reason why so many people rallied to him. That's why Labour grew to the size that it is now. I think there are many people who recognise that the programme we're standing on, yes, of course, that addresses the needs of our communities, but it's more than that. It's about us members being in the driving seat.
To you. And what The Economist is saying tonight in a piece, it is called Jeremy Corbyn's policy, calculated equivocation. Does that strike you as what's happening now?
I think, let me just say, I agree with Chris what he said about the poll and how the numbers are interpreted. What I disagree with here is this idea that a general election and a people's vote are counterposed. They are definitely not. And I think the majority of Labour members that do want a general election, of course, we all want a general election. We want to get the Tory government out as soon as possible. But a majority of Labour members also recognise that a people's vote might be the way out of the Brexit.
And if that's the case and the majority wants a people's vote, what do you think of Jeremy Corbyn's reticence to even to discuss it? I mean, we have Keir Starmer talking about it. Clearly, there's a lot of backbench MPs talking about it. But the fact that there is a definite divide and that Jeremy Corbyn will not countenance the idea at the moment of discussing, do you find that disappointing?
I don't think he won't discuss it. I definitely see what Rupert Hag was talking about in that clip, that at the end of the day, people are hoping he will respect the democratic consensus in the Labour Party. However, I do think, and it's not just a problem with Jeremy, I think there is a problem with the Labour Party being seen to triangulate a bit too much.
Triangulating a bit too much, Gareth Snell.
I think the problem that we face as a Labour Party, and for what it's worth, I think Jeremy has captured where the party's frustration and trouble is. 2/3 of Labour MPs are in seats that voted Leave. we cannot simply turn around to those seats and say we're going to have another vote straight away. Jeremy's right, a general election is a way forward. I'm not sure how likely that is to achieve.
Yeah.
So we have to think about what comes next.
It's about realpolitik, and it's about Labour defining its position, and presumably you feel that that should come from the leadership.
I think it should come from the leadership, but I also think it should come from the Labour Party in Parliament as a whole, which is why I put my name to amendments, is why people like Hilary Benn and Yvette Cooper have been putting down amendments, and why we've been supporting the front bench amendments, because as a party in Parliament, we have a duty to try and make this work.
But you, along with John Mann and Caroline Flint, have put your names to the amendment on workers' rights.
Yep.
So will you actually support that amendment on workers' rights if it means that there's more chance of the deal going through?
Well, I shall support the amendment on workers' rights, but I've been very clear with the government that this is a step towards where they need to be. This does not mean I will vote for the motion on Tuesday, but it does start the conversation.
Then you not vote for the amendment then? I mean, because presumably you're not going to do both. I mean, because there isn't a both.
No, but the Prime Minister's deal will not pass Parliament on Tuesday. Categorically, that is the case. So this is about starting a conversation from Wednesday morning that says, how do we get to that deal that we can support?
But it's interesting because you might say, even that Jeremy Corbyn has poo-pooed.
No, Jeremy said it hasn't gone far enough, and the people that have put our names to that amendment, we accept that. It does not give the legislative bind that we need, but it does demonstrate that the Prime Minister does and can make concessions if she wants to, so she can now make greater concessions to get a deal that has the support of the majority of Parliament.
Brian, can I just come to you to put this in context as a long-time observer, researcher and academic on Labour's history, and in a way Labour's sort of tortuous history with the EU. Why has this relationship proved to be so problematic?
Well, in the end, it comes down to power. So in 63, Gateskill makes his 1,000 years of history. He does that partly to appeal to the left, because he needs the left.
Yeah. And so I mean, he's implacably opposed to the idea of a European Economic Commission.
He's emotionally opposed to it. It's not a defining issue for him.
No.
It wasn't a defining issue for any of the Labour leaders that I can think of, except possibly John Smith. For most of them, it's a pragmatic power issue. So Wilson keeps the party together by having a referendum. It's the only way to hold the party together.
But letting his cabinet ministers vote whatever way they want.
Before 87 realises we have to stop saying we're going to withdraw from Europe. 83 manifesto, Labour was going to withdraw from Europe. By 87 they realised that was nonsense, because Europe was actually better for core constituencies.
But why is it more complex now for Labour?
Now, because we've got a membership who aren't used to power politics in this way, who don't understand in the end Corbyn is just a politician. He hasn't changed his mind on big issues since 1917.
Has he changed his mind on Europe?
But he hasn't changed his mind on Europe. But most
so
importantly,
he's anti-EU.
He's historically and emotionally and intellectually opposed to an idea of the European Union, which is completely out of date. But that's not the point. The point is he's also the leader of the Labour Party. And this is a power play. This is all about power. Europe is usually used in British politics as a tool to gain and seek power. That's why he's talking general election. That's the prize. The prize is not in or out of Europe now. The prize is a majority Labour government, because that's what he believes in the end will make a difference and deliver his platform.
But what is the impact of that? I mean, who is his main, as it were, opponent in that power play?
His opponent is the enthusiasm that he's generated in the Labour movement, which he's destroying. And it's ironic, but it's happened before. Over unilateralism, when Nye Bevan came out against the bomb, it was described as the massacre of the enthusiasm of the Labour Party.
Chris, you're actually, Chris Williamson, shaking your head about that. But the historical experience of that is you create this mass membership. You put out there people like Aneg, who here wants to have the idea of a second referendum, and then you kind of take it away from them.
Well, look, the enthusiasm in the party is still very, very strong and very profound. And the reason why we're calling for a general election is to try and bring the country together. We need a Labour government. Let's remember, we're inside the European Union now. The UN Special Rapporteur on Poverty identified the fact there are 14 million people in this country living in poverty. 1.5 million are destitute. This is inside the European Union. We need a Labour government, a radical Labour government, that will invest in our economy, invest in our public services, and actually improve the living standards of people. And look, if we do end up leaving the European Union, that's what people have voted for, and that's where I believe the direction of travel will take us. even if the economy were to shrink a bit, but with an interventionist Labour government, we could address that shock with a fiscal stimulus. But even if the economy did shrink a bit, we are the 5th biggest economy in the world. The issue is about redistribution. That's the key. And I've shown you a radical Labour government under Jeremy Corbyn that will have a policy of redistribution, and that will lift the living standards of everybody, the 99% of the public in this country.
Brian.
But that's it. I mean, you said it exactly there. When Tony Crosland was Foreign Secretary, he used to say the European Union was 18th on his list of priorities. Everything else the Labour government did was more important. It's a kind of socialism in one country that they're going for, which might work, but the being in and out of Brexit, being in and out of the European Union is irrelevant in that model. What matters is power. And in a way, he's right. Be in politics or don't be in politics. There's no point in being in politics and doing it badly.
But now you have, Alena, I would say in the younger generation of Labour supporters of Momentum, you do have young people who are ideologically in favour, not just pragmatically or whatever, ideologically in favour of the European Union.
I think this comes down not just to the political power play that Brian is outlining. I think for the majority of members, this is a fundamental value issue. And we're talking here not about a Labour-driven Brexit project, because it didn't start from Labour. It is not being led by Labour. The Brexit project we have now is a far-right project. It's an attack on the economy. It's about deregulation. And people like me associate, to an extent, this debate with, do you go for a deregulated, free market for all, bonfire of rights version, or do you go for international socialism?
Gareth Snell, on the question of Jeremy Corbyn's leadership, could his leadership be undone by Brexit?
I don't think so. I honestly don't. I think that the members in my own constituency party that support Jeremy still support him because they understand that there is a range of other issues that we need to address. I mean, on the point of international socialism versus deregulation, there is a lot in between that. And what we need to do, and what we need to do as a party, because if we're going to form the next Labour government, the radical Labour government, we need to win back the Stoke South, the Walsall North. We don't do that by saying, let's just constantly play around with procedural things in referendum.
But Brian, we're in a situation where, if the deal falls next week, Labour may call for a vote of no confidence, well, Barry Gardiner would, anyway. They would not win it unless the DUP and other Tories defect. That's not going to be the position. There'll be 3 days, and then what happens to Labour then?
Well, then I think they have to pursue. They've made their play now. They have to pursue it. They have to keep pushing it. And if that means a temporary dip in popularity internally, they'll take that. He will keep having to push to force a general election. That's his only real option now. If a Labour government is what this project is about, you can have one or the other. And the Labour government needs, I think, to deliver on Brexit, very sadly, personally, but that's what they need to deliver on. And that's how they can win a general election in the constituencies that you're talking about.
Thank you all very much indeed.